Neck-throughs, guitars, they're like a guy that you won't have a beer with you.
I want to hear what's pushing the notes.
Freddie King and B.B. King, Albert King, and let's not forget Burger King.
I don't want to blow my knuckle out.
Stainless steel is the work of the devil.
These go to 11.
From the East Amplification Tone Labs in Baltimore, Maryland, it's the Amps and Axes Show with your hosts, Jeff the Godfather of Low Wattage Amps Bober and Mick Marcelino.
Well, good day to you, Mr. Bober.
Good day to you, Mr. Marcelino.
That's we're mid-conversation.
We're talking going to 11, but that's for a whole nother day.
Yeah, exactly.
But, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
And once again, I can't talk. Anyway, yes, thank you to the fans.
Yes. Well, I wasn't thanking you personally.
I understand.
But thank you, too.
Yes.
You know, but I was thanking
Thank
the fans.
you for letting me come into your house.
That's right.
But yes, please, thank you guys for spreading the word, man. Numbers are looking great. And, of course, thank you for clicking through the Amazon banner and the PayPal.
Click.
And touching all the social media on our page at ampsandaxescast.com. And, of course, giving some love to Mr. Jason Seditas for the quick lick.
Absolutely.
We forget every now and then to talk about him, and I'm choking to death. But, yeah,
See, that's what you get. Well, I should be choking, too, because
Excuse me.
one of us should remember. But, yes, we always try to remember, and we are always grateful to
Jason
Mr.
is
Seditas
just
because, he takes the time to do this. And, just this off-the-wall stuff that he comes up with, and then he plays, and then he plays slowly, and then he charts it out.
Yeah.
Wow. So thank you.
And
thank
I mean,
you, Jason.
yes, we can't thank him enough.
Right.
We have to take him out to dinner if he didn't live on the other side of the planet.
Right. Well, occasionally he's somewhere around once in a while, so we'll find out where
we'll
that
have
is
to do something like that.
Kidnap him for the evening.
Thanks for spending hours of your day. Here's some dinner.
Yeah, it might be more than dinner.
Yeah,
Yes.
So, got a little quick thing here, and then we'll get into our very cool guest.
Yes. We have a very cool guest for you today.
I think now we're doing this because I like to reveal everything, but we're doing this post interview. So I have seen the Holy Grail.
Well,
that's thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm out of here. No, just kidding.
That's because sometimes the intervies have to happen right now.
Yeah. That was a call like, hey, can you? And I said,
Sure.
Yeah, sure. I'm there. No problem.
Right.
So I want to talk about this icon guy. This was a
guy that invented the icon.
No.
Was there someone invented an icon?
No.
Okay.
No.
Cool.
Iconic guitarist, I should say.
Okay.
I'm an idiot. Anyway.
No. I was just busting your chops.
I know. I have no game. I'm worn out today. It's a new book about Randy Rhoads.
Oh, nice.
Our good buddy, John Sullivan from Sully Guitars. I follow him on Facebook, and I see a lot of his posts and everything, and he is a huge Randy Rhoads fan. And, he got this book called Randy Rhoads. And it's a picture of Randy Rhoads playing with the polka dot guitar, the Flying V, that was not made by Jackson. It was made by another guy. Don't quiz me on that. I just know that it was, with a cigarette in his hand. Okay. And he's just standing there. I'll have to show this to you later.
Okay.
Well, anyway, I researched it out, and I'm going to purchase the book. It's supposedly a really good book about his life, and with a bunch of photos that you've never seen before from all the shows.
Oh,
and,
nice.
His days in Quiet Riot, and really burning up the scene. But so what I did was I went out and I started looking up some YouTube videos because I'm into that thing, and I found one where it was his mom, Dolores Rhoads. Well, little did I know.
What was she doing on a YouTube video?
Well, there's like a documentary, a little snippet thing. I don't know what you would call it, but it was it looked like it was from another, like a longer format thing.
Okay.
But it had her, it had Ozzy.
Just an excerpt from something. It looked like. Okay.
It had her, it had Ozzy, and it had not Randy, Ozzy's wife, Sharon.
Sharon.
Okay. And what she was talking about, and his sister, Randy's sister, what Dolores was talking about is that she had, she ran a music school. Okay. And she had, pianists and violins. It was more of like probably, well, it was definitely very academic, to where it wasn't just like a GIT where you go out and you learn how to shred or anything like that. Right. It was actually, you learned music. You learned how to read. You learned how to compose. You learned all the fundamentals that needed to be done. More of a traditional
kind of music school, quote unquote.
Yeah, and she put Randy through it. And one of her things that she said, and I was like, wow, man, I've really missed the boat on this. And I've heard Steve Lukather say this. And what she said was, she goes, he learned how to read music. He learned how to read music. Actually read it, play it as you're playing it, that type of thing, like a pianist, right? Right. Or anybody that's in an orchestra knows how to read music.
Right.
If you think about it. So she said, and that is the basis for the fundamentals. She goes, so many times, there are tons of guitar players that can't read music, and they're very famous and they're very innovative and everything else. But she said, really, to be able to really use the tool the way that that you can use it. And Steve Lukather said this. She said, you kind of want to start with this piece of learning how to read, and then you have the tools. You can go and you can do this thing. And that was the whole mix between him and Ozzy. Ozzy had these ideas, but he had no idea, because he's not musically inclined, to be able to put them out there. Well, Randy was the guy that could kind of see into that light, because he had all this behind him.
Interesting.
So he was able to do this whole forward thinking for Ozzy. So that's why they had this amazing bond, both of them.
That's really cool.
That's why the albums flew out the door like they did. The first two albums were like boom, boom. I mean, it was, they did the one, they did the tour, and they came in. The second one was done. They were back out on the road. And then, of course, the airplane accident.
Yeah, yeah.
But
that's very interesting. I mean, that is the one thing that I do miss. Not that I didn't try. I just kept hitting a brick wall at certain points in learning to read.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
But for me, I think there's three different aspects to music, outside the playing it. It's like it's reading, it's theory, and then composition. And if I could have traditional knowledge on any one of those, or more than one, I think in order of preference for me, I think top of the list would be composition. Because I learned so much from sitting in with friends of mine and learning their originals, and realizing that they knew how to compose a song when they wrote this. They just didn't throw some chords together. They really knew music theory, and then took the theory and used it to compose a musical piece, not to just throw some chords together and some words together and a solo together. They know a lot about the composition of music and what works musically and what should follow what and why.
Sure.
And that to me is that's the holy grail right there.
Yeah.
So I really wish I knew composition above everything else.
I agree. And so then as the conversation goes through this video that I'm watching, she talks about how he went for the audition for Ozzy. He was actually not going to do it. He was fine with, he was making money teaching at her school, and he was very happy doing that. And he was really going off onto the classical side. I mean, he was becoming a very accomplished guitar player.
And you could tell.
Yeah. And so then he also had Quiet Riot, and Quiet Riot was doing very well at the time. I mean, they were the big band of L.A., and so he kind of like said to her, he goes, I don't know. And she goes, you should just go down. She goes, they keep calling here asking for you. Because Bob Daisley was the guy that kept saying, you need to check out this guitar player.
Oh, wow.
So he goes down, he takes some little tiny amp. Now, this is early 80s, right? So it isn't going to be one of these nice little amps that we have
it's
today.
It's going to be a little portable solid state thing,
Exactly.
probably, you know?
And he goes down, he's got his white Les Paul, and he plugs in. Ozzy is wasted, out of his mind. He barely coherent. He's laying down on the couch in the studio, and he brings this thing in, sets it up, and just starts warming up. And Ozzy wakes up out of this drunken stupor, and he goes, what in the hell is this? You know, he's like, oh, you know, that's the guitar player, you know, and he's like, you know, I'm doing my worst Ozzy impersonation. But then, he finishes and he comes back and she goes, how'd you do? And he goes, I really don't know, but all I know is before I left, they were screaming, you got the job. You know, as Ozzy was
that
screaming.
Pretty much tells you how you did.
Yeah. So he did the first album, he did the second album, and they were out on the road. And like 2 weeks before he was killed, he sat with Ozzy and he said, you know, think I'm done. And Ozzy's like, what do you mean? And he goes, well, you know, I've done this rock star thing. I've seen the world. I thank you for it. I've played in front of as many people as I can possibly play in front of. And he goes, but I think I want to stop and go back and get my master's degree in music and continue my teachings.
Wow.
And he said, Ozzy's like, are you out of your mind? You know, because Ozzy can't think on that, you know, but he was so content with what he knew that it was
That's
not
awesome. Yeah.
It was not an issue for him to be this megalomania star. He just was kind of happy that he had a job.
Right.
And he was like,
saw the world.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah, I kind of did 2 albums. We did this thing. After this, I think I'm going to call it a night and I'll go back to L.A. and start teaching at my mom's school again.
Wow,
you know,
that's crazy. I had never heard that story. That's crazy.
It was kind of a weird piece of it that I was like, imagine to have that.
Yeah.
You know, that must have been.
That is someone that is so secure with themselves and so at peace with themselves and knows above all what makes them happiest.
It has to be an open road. You know, like when you see those those pictures like out in Nevada, you know, like Highway 66, it's just literally going for, you know, literally 75 miles in front of you. Nothing.
Right.
Just this wide open thing. The freeing of the mind that he must have had when he looked at a guitar, it just had to be on another level.
Yeah, I guess so, man. Wow. Well, good on him. I'm sorry he couldn't do that, but at least he got to see the world.
Yeah.
At least he got to see the world.
And I mean, even to this day, you know, he's still, you know, the songs hold up, and the solos are still incredibly well written. I mean, you could tell that. And here's another little tidbit. You know, a lot of people think that he used like a chorus pedal in the studio. No. He went back in, re-recorded his solos. He dubbed the tracks on the solo, not just the rhythm parts.
Oh, wow.
On the solo, and that's what gave it that stereo effect.
So he organically double tracked. Like he didn't take the second track like some guys do and just add a tiny bit of delay and it sounds like it's doubled. He played the solos twice, right.
And that's how good he was.
Wow, yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good. I've tried that. It's not that easy.
Yeah, take something like Mr. Crowley where, I mean, it is just hyper speed. And he just nailed it. And that's what he could, because composition, once again, he wrote it out. He had it all, you know, he did there's some studio tapes where you hear him kind of thinking through it. But then he's like, okay, this will work. This will go here. That'll go. And then it's just done.
Yeah, that's
very wild stuff.
Even if he was developing it in the studio, I guarantee you that he got what he wanted and then charted it so that he could repeat it over and over again.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So thanks, John Sullivan, for that.
Yeah, thank you.
So speaking of iconic guitar players.
Oh, huge. And I know he's seen the world. I don't know, you know, if he ever taught. I don't know if he reads. But I do know that he's played with a bunch of people, a lot more than most people know. Some of them you know, some of them you don't. That surprised me too, which I thought was great. But this guy is an icon in the truest sense of the word.
Oh yeah,
and has been around for a long time, done a lot of stuff, still playing, and you're going to find out he's a sweetheart of a guy. And I can tell you because I saw him play after we did the interview.
Yes.
And he can still play. And he's still got a great voice. It's all still, the package is still there. And we saw him in trio format, and that's all this man needs. He needs nothing else behind him.
That's right.
Just a trio format and go. So when we come back, we're going to go with Mr. Rick Derringer.
Hey, what's up? This is Elliot Dean Rubinson, the boss that rocks, CEO of Dean Guitars, and you're listening to Amps and Axes.
And as promised, we are back with living legend, icon in rock and roll. Just the man has such an incredible rock and roll history. It's ridiculous. And if you don't believe me, look it up.
But I heard your show can be otherwise called the Iconery.
The icon? I like that. I think we might take that. It's the Iconery. Wow, that's great. All right, we are here. The man needs no introduction, but I'm going to introduce him anyway. Mr. Rick Derringer. Rick, thank you for being on with us.
Well, it's my pleasure.
Awesome.
Yeah, man.
You are a busy man, especially today, man. Do you go at this pace every day?
Not every day, but it seems like the last couple weeks have been like this.
Wow. Well, we are very fortunate to have you here.
Yes.
And we really do appreciate it. I know, we're going to be here. I'm really looking forward to the show. I heard soundcheck, and it's sounding great. And, we'll get into the guitar and the gear and everything like that in a little bit. But as I always do, and Mick knows this,
yes,
I like to go in the Wayback Machine and find out where Mr. Derringer came from. Where were you born and raised, and what put the music bug in you?
Wow. I'm from Ohio originally.
Okay.
My dad was a railroad man. Was, in fact, the youngest section foreman on the railroad, a hard-working guy. He married the girl of his dreams and honored her and just worked hard to take care of whatever she wanted. She had 3 boys. I was the first one. She wanted to be a singer, and that's kind of part of why he wanted to honor her so much. He, after making her a homemaker, took her away from her dream of wanting to be a singer. Her brother played guitar. Okay. And so my uncle is a guitar player. So she kind of channeled us in that direction, I think. My brother and I, she also worked at Westinghouse. And on the way, when she'd be driven to work, we'd ride along. And I remember at a very early age, she taught my brother and I how to sing harmony.
Wow.
And so just as little kids, 3-4 years old, we learned to sing harmony. And then she'd also take us to hear my uncle play a guitar, occasionally, not often, but occasionally. But I can remember probably what had the most impact was once, I must have been 7 or 8, he actually came to our house and brought a little guitar amplifier with him and plugged his guitar in and sat down in our kitchen and played guitar for us. And that specific moment, hearing real music played live in your own kitchen, for some reason had a real impact on me. Hearing it was almost like creation. God created music.
Wow.
It was almost like something
in
like
my kitchen.
that. Yeah, it was almost something like
awesome.
that. You know,
you saw
it's
the
not
light.
just records. It's not just radios. It is actually can be created by a person anywhere. And wow. I think that had some kind of real impact on me. And by the time I was 8, I said, I want a guitar. And for my 9th birthday, my parents got me a guitar.
Wow.
That's awesome. Do you remember what it was? Was it just like your typical entry-level guitar that everybody plays?
It was an electric guitar.
Oh, wow.
And a little amplifier. Probably some kind of offshoot of a harmony one pickup electric guitar, one of those kind made of some kind of fiberboard, but it was a solid body style guitar, but it probably was hollow in the inside, fiberboard on the outside. I think it was a Harmony offshoot of some kind, but it was playable enough that I was able to play it. And being from a little bitty town that I was from, my uncle didn't live there, or we probably would have gone there first. But my dad actually called up. He found out that a guy that worked at the Ford garage, a mechanic at the Ford garage, played guitar, he heard. So he looked in the phone book and found out this guy's name. His name was Gene Feely.
Wow, you remember this.
And my memory with names isn't very good, so you can tell what kind of impact it had.
Wow.
He called up Gene Feely in the phone book and said, my son got my son a guitar. Would you mind showing him something? Would you show him something on that guitar? And Gene was gracious enough, said, bring him on over. So that very first night, we went over to Gene Feely's house, and Gene Feely showed me, I think, not only a couple chords, he actually showed me how to use those chords and play like a song. I don't remember which song it was, but a basic song, not just how to sing the song over those chords, but he showed me how to play a basic chordal song.
Wow.
In other words, an instrumental.
That's pretty advanced.
Yeah,
for that time.
He showed me how to play a song that only entailed three or four chords to play the song, and I went, wow. Yeah, I did. I said the same thing. Wow, this is pretty cool. And I went and learned that song instantly, and played it within the hour as if I were a pro. And because anything I learned, I absorbed instantly as if I were a pro, so that like the next day we went to Dayton, Ohio, where my uncle lived. He showed me like Caravan or something, like that. I mean, a song that you could impress people with. And within a few of those kind of sessions, I had a repertoire. So I could go to wherever my uncle might be playing on a Sunday afternoon or something, and he could say, well, let's get my little nephew Rick up here to play. And I'd get up and play. Within like a couple weeks, I was getting up playing live in front of people and stuff. So then I could go, the next move would be going to play, it says in Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo, there was a band called the Jokers, and they were laying it down. Dickie Betts was playing in the Jokers when I was a kid. And we'd go find where the Jokers were playing, and we'd talk, my dad would talk them. They'd say, well, he looks pretty young. My dad'd say, oh, give him a shot. Believe me. You let him get up and play one song with you and see what happens. And they'd let me get up first time and let me play a song, and they'd go like, wow, this kid can play the guitar. And so periodically we'd go around, and the Jokers knew me enough to, come on up, Ricky. And they'd let me get up and play. And
how old were you at this point?
10. Wow. In other words, before I was 10, I was probably already doing this. And by the time I was 10, I was like making the rounds and getting local things like at the Elks Club and Kiwanis and Knights of Columbus and anything local where they'd get little kids up and play. I'd get up and play.
It's like a prodigy.
Yeah, exactly. 10. I mean, we've had a few of these on the show, and man, I don't know what it's like to be able to start from such an early age and to just come out of the gate almost being good enough to actually know that this is what you're going to do.
Whatever they'd show me, I'd know, like, I'd play it instantly. And so all my quest was, and my parents' quest was, who can we find to show him stuff? My uncle would show me things whenever we'd see him, but he lived 50, 60 miles away, so we couldn't get there often. And Gene Feely only knew so much, and we'd find a teacher, and they wouldn't know really. They could only show me what they knew. I'd absorb whatever they knew quickly.
Wow! So they were very proactive in your continuing learning.
Yeah,
in this.
That is awesome.
Yeah. That's great. It's when did you get to the point where you got together with some guys and let's do a band?
Well, my brother got an accordion. They got him an accordion, but he very quickly went like, "This accordion, this isn't cool."
Nothing says rock like an accordion, man.
And he knew it. He was a couple years younger than me, but he very quickly realized this accordion is not what I envision. He told him, I want drums.
Oh, wow. So he didn't go to keys. He went to drums.
No, he was the guy in Johnny Winter, Randy Z, in the Johnny Winter band. He was the drummer in the McCoys eventually. So he and I, then just drums and guitar, would play around at local functions. So we were a duo, and then we'd get up and play with the Jokers and stuff. But we moved into a town. Our little town where we lived had a garage, so the two of us could open the garage door and play, practice.
Mm-hmm.
And my neighbor, his dad was like a dentist, and he would hear us play, and he said, man, if I get a bass, will you show me how to play it? And I said, if you get a bass, I would be glad to show you how to play it. I didn't know how to play the bass, but I said, we'll figure that out.
Well, you already mastered 2 extra strings, so how hard could that be,
We'll figure that thing out.
That's right.
So he actually talked his dad, within a matter of weeks, he came over and said, I got a bass, so come on over and see what I got. Well, his dad had some bucks. So I went over there, and sure enough, he had a brand new Fender Bassman amp, the old Tolex with the brown grill cloth, and a Fender Bassman amp, salmon pink bass. I mean, a Fender Bassman jazz bass. Jazz bass. That salmon pink jazz bass, brand new, just out of the box. Wow. These things. So I went like, wow. So I went home and got my Ventures album out, and the easiest song on the album was a song called The McCoy. Go figure. So I learned the song The McCoy, and I brought him over, and this guy had no musical aptitude at all. Dennis Kelly was his name. But he could absorb, this was the easiest song known to man. And so he could easy enough figure out what I showed him, these 3 notes that it took to play the McCoy. And within, a couple hours, he got that down. And so we sat there and played that song until we could play it as a 3-man type band.
Mm-hmm.
And we went like, wow, check us out.
We can make music now.
We're a band.
Yeah.
And not only that, if we actually called ourselves the McCoys, we have a theme song.
That's awesome. That is
great.
Fantastic.
The genesis
Wow.
of the McCoys.
Right. And was he the bass player when the McCoys had
here's what happened. He was not, like I said, he didn't have a musical aptitude. It wasn't easy for him. But we got suits that looked alike, and we eventually taught him enough of a repertoire where we could put together a set list, and so we could go out and get gigs. So we were playing paid gigs because we could play 45 minutes or an hour, and we would play real gigs, real places. We were playing like sock hops and Sunday afternoon things, paying gigs. But all of a sudden one day, he was older than us. He came to us and said, my calling is probably I've enrolled myself in college. I'm going to go away. I'm going to become a dentist. And we right away went, well, that's probably your calling. We got you.
We didn't want to tell you it wasn't bass playing.
Yeah, we got you. But there was this kid, we always used to go to a local swimming pool in our little town where we were, and there was this kid who was like the total town kind of renegade. He had slicked back, curly, wavy black hair, and he would wear the tightest swim trunks at the swimming pool where we went. And his name was Randy Joe Hobbs. And he wanted to play bass on his own. He didn't know us. He decided on his own that he wanted to play bass. So he went to the junkyard and found a guitar that somebody threw away. And he took a Dan Electro guitar that somebody threw away, and he took the 2 strings off the guitar and made it into his own bass. Made a bass guitar out of this old Dan Electro junkyard guitar.
Wow.
And not only that, he learned every Motown song that had ever been released.
Are you kidding?
I'm not kidding.
Wow.
He had such an aptitude for playing bass. He knew every Motown song that had been released up to that moment.
It's like a junkyard James Jamerson kind of. Wow, that's ridiculous.
This kid. So we had heard about him, and so the first thing we did was we went over and said, Randy, man, Dennis Kelly, who was our bass player, is going away to school, so he can still play for the next few months on the weekends, but he can't play through the week on these gigs we got. You think you can learn this set list? Randy said, I know all those songs. I don't have to learn it, man. I can play every song that you guys have in your set list. So what would happen is we would then, through the week, be playing with Randy Joe Hobbs, but meanwhile, Randy knew a ton of songs that we all of a sudden went, you know all those songs? We'd be playing fabulous songs that we went, these are great songs.
We should learn what he knows.
Yeah, that's what we were doing. We were going, we don't have to do this set that we had to dumb down ourselves to play because of Dennis. We can now play all these fabulous songs that we couldn't play because Dennis could never learn them.
Wow.
So we got to the point where through the weeks for these 3 months, we were playing fabulous songs in our repertoire, and then we'd get together on the weekend for 2 days and couldn't play all these great songs. We had to play the dumbed down set for Dennis Kelly. So
poor Dennis.
The first opportunity.
No offense, Dennis, really.
The first opportunity we had when Dennis said, well, sorry guys, now I'm going away full time. I won't be playing with you guys on the weekends. We all went like, happy days are here again.
Can we throw you a going away party?
Yeah. So Randy became our full-time bass player, and
awesome.
The McCoys, the past was behind us, and that was we became the McCoys for real.
So how did you wind up getting the big song out?
We started doing great gigs. Then we started playing the local radio station, Dayton, Ohio, was WING. And we started playing big gigs. We became like their favorite go-to band, because what you'd have to do to play for the big shows in Dayton, Ohio, was you'd be the opening act, but then the opening act would back the headliners. And so Chuck Berry came through town. I'm sure you've heard about Chuck Berry's rehearsals. He looked at us, first of all, as little kids. He went, that's my backup band, to the promoter. And the promoter said, no, give him a chance. Give him a chance, Chuck. You won't believe it.
His rehearsals are, he pulls up, gets out of the car, and goes to the stage, right?
Well, close to that. We learned every song.
He gets paid first.
He gets paid first.
That's right.
But we learned every Chuck Berry song. We knew every Chuck Berry song. Forget about the fact that he doesn't do them like you ever heard them. But his rehearsal was, okay, guys, you're going to be my band. Okay, well, the promoter said I got to trust you. So here's the rehearsal. See that foot right there? When it goes up and comes down, the song starts. You keep watching that foot, and when that foot comes up and comes down again, you stop. That's the rehearsal. Okay, let's go.
Awesome. I never heard that Chuck Berry story before.
That's a good one.
That was his rehearsal with us, and the set went fabulous. But so we backed up everybody that can. WING would call us up. This week you're backing up Bobby Goldsboro. Well, Bobby Goldsboro was the year before we backed up the Strangeloves. Bobby Goldsboro tried to get us a record deal for a year, and he wasn't able to do it. But by the time the Strangeloves came through town, they were the guys that were also called FGG Productions. They were the first group that started producing records for Bang Records. They produced My Boyfriend's Back and You're Gonna Be.
Wow.
They wrote and produced that.
Was that Shirelles?
It was the Angels.
Angels.
They were three nurses in these guys' neighborhood, and they turned them into the Angels. They had a real talent for writing songs, and they wrote that song and produced it for Bang Records. So they were the Bang Records superstar producers. Bang Records sent them out on the road as the Strangeloves, who did I Want Candy. And on that first tour, Burt Burns was one of the co-writers of Hang On Sloopy. So they said, while you're out on the road, Hang On Sloopy was called My Girl Sloopy by the vibrations, and it was a black hit on the black charts. So they said, while you're out there, if you can find a band that's going to do, that looks like the Beatles, young kids that look like the Beatles, we will let you produce that song, My Girl Sloopy, for Bang Records, and it'll be a huge hit on the white charts. And so we didn't know this, but we were hired by WING, the radio station, to be the opening act and the backup band for the Strangeloves that night. Well, we didn't know any of this backstory, but we coincidentally had gone out that day and bought Beatle suits. So here we are, backing up the Strangeloves, being the band that you just heard about, fabulous little band, and we had Beatle suits on that night with our freshly cut Beatle haircuts, and they, in the middle of their rehearsal, said, do you guys happen to know the song My Girl Sloopy? Because we're going to play My Girl Sloopy as part of our set. And we, being the band that we were, loved the black charts. We said, do we know My Girl Sloopy? That's one of our favorite songs.
Wow.
So we played the crap out of My Girl Sloopy for them that night. So it also, coincidentally, was the last night on their tour. So they pulled us backstage immediately after the show and said, do you guys want to come back to New York City tomorrow and record My Girl Sloopy with us? And I looked over at my dad. My dad said, well, son, coincidentally, I don't know if you realize it, but my vacation starts tomorrow. So
wow.
We piled our instruments in the back of a little U-Haul van, strapped it on the back of my dad's car, and we followed the Strangeloves in their car back to New York City the next day, recorded My Girl Sloopy. One of the things I noticed was, we never say My Girl Sloopy in this song. What's with this title? So we changed the title to Hang On Sloopy. And I could say the rest is history, but what happened before the song came out, a Canadian band called Little Caesar and the Consoles released My Girl Sloopy, and the record company went, what? This is going to mess everything up here for us. So Bang Records actually stands for B, Burt Burns, A, Ahmet Ertegun, N is Nesui Ertegun, and G is Gerald Wexler. So this was the baby of those Atlantic giants in the record industry. So those guys said, we have to make ours the hit. So not only was ours Hang On Sloopy by the McCoys, which was a good record, but all of a sudden they not only were going to make it a hit just because that's what they do, but now they were pushed into high gear because of this other record that was put out ahead of theirs, a couple weeks ahead of theirs. So they had a real necessity to make theirs a hit. So the rest is history.
But you got to put it out under the McCoys.
Yeah. The Strangeloves had it on their album as My Girl Sloopy, but they didn't want it to come out as the Strangeloves. They wanted the young kids that looked like the McCoy, that looked like the Beatles, to put it out.
Wow, interesting.
That is
really
so wild.
Interesting. Yeah. So that's what year did that come out?
65.
65. Okay.
And then in '66, you guys.
This is the 50th anniversary.
Wow,
year.
no lie. And then in '66, you were the opening band for the Rolling Stones.
You went out
That's
and toured with
correct.
the Stones.
Yeah, we were opening for the Stones, their whole tour. 66. And it became the first release for Immediate Records in London, which was their label.
Holy crap.
That's why we got the tour in 66, as a matter of fact. People were very smart in those days in the record business.
Yeah, they were figuring out how to make money.
Yes,
when
they did.
was an actual record business.
Yes,
wow.
Correct. Now they release them for 99 cents, one song at a time, and you end up netting 9 cents.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you do Hang On Sloopy tonight in your set?
We will, sure.
You will?
Yeah.
Awesome. See, I was just throwing it out there. I thought the answer was,
coolest.
oh, no, we don't play that anymore. But, wow, that's crazy.
This is so cool.
We do every obvious song.
Really? So that's we're mid to late 60s now.
Yes.
After the Stones tour, did you was that the end of the McCoys after that, or did you go to putting a solo project
the
together?
McCoys continued touring and
Okay.
did all the obvious stuff that those people could make money off of.
Mm-hmm.
We toured a lot in the United States, but at some point, our excuse me, I don't know if we really became disenchanted with the people we were with, or we thought they were taking advantage of us, or what exactly. But for some reason, we were encouraged to seek more independent ways, business, and we left Bang Records. I think what we really were trying to do was leave our management at that time. We thought they were maybe cheating us, business-wise, and
Gee, did that
they may have been. But Burt Burns and that record company, Bang Records, was a good. Were into selling records, and certainly with that Burt Ahmet Nesui Gerald moniker, they could certainly sell records. And even if they were taking advantage of us and skimming, it was much better to sell records and be skimmed than to not sell records.
For sure.
So Burt came to us and said, "I understand you guys are leaving your management with those guys, FGG Productions, because they were producing and managing, which is not the best move." But he said, "I would still encourage you to stay with Bang Records." And I think we were pretty stupid to not take that offer, because what we did then was we went out on our own and probably hired inferior management, because we didn't know what we were doing, and then went with Mercury Records, who really didn't know what they were doing too much. And we released crazy records that were musically very adventurous. One was called Infinite McCoys, and another one was called Human Ball, that people still love. People swear by. They say, wow, musically those were wild and crazy records. And they were very musically adept and wild and crazy. But Mercury not only didn't know how to market them or how to sell them, I don't know if there was any way to market them or sell them. And the management company didn't really know what to do with us either that we went with. So what happened was, that's when we found Johnny and Johnny found us, Johnny Winter. And so what we came up with was a way to go to the record company and concoct a story that simply said, and we conjured this up through meetings with Johnny Winter's manager. And we said, if we are going to join Johnny Winter, we are all going to be in one camp together. Johnny Winter's manager would manage us. The McCoys, the remaining three McCoys, would join Johnny Winter. We will all be in the same management group and stuff. And together we conjured up this is what we will do. Rick, you as the leader of the McCoys, will go to Mercury Records, and what you will say is, well, you can listen to our 2 albums, management at Mercury. You can listen to these 2 albums, and what that music should tell you is, we are certainly embroiled in the psychedelic drug culture, and it has fried the brains of my band. My band.
Oh my God!
My band is so embroiled in culture that they have totally burned their brains out. And I would encourage you, record company, to not keep spending money that is going to just be spent going down the tubes, and I would encourage you to just let us out of our contract. Wow. I will not ask you to spend any more money on us.
Oh, this is crazy.
I would just, all I ask is to let us go.
Let us out, yeah.
And I will then encourage them to get health tips and encourage them to try to get hospitalization or whatever it entails. And
they went for it,
awesome.
And they bought it.
They bought it.
They bought it, and we immediately signed with Johnny Winter and Columbia and, and all that, and the rest is history.
Wow, that's a whole nother can of history right there.
That is amazing.
That is crazy. That's insane. I mean, so yeah. I mean, then you of course you start recording. I was going to ask you. at some point you got into a bunch of studio work, and there was that before Johnny and Edgar, or after, but obviously this came before.
It all started in approximately the same time period. I mean, while we were doing those albums with Mercury, one of the things I did was I started using horn sections. I used Blood, Sweat, and Tears horn section on those records I did with Mercury. I started using arrangements and arrangers and things. Musically, they were really cool, but commercial. The record company didn't know what they were not commercial. They were not commercial. But musically, that's what we really wanted to do, was show that we were not a bubblegum band. That was our main quest, was to go, and we are not singing Hang On Sloopy again, although it was a huge hit. We probably should have. We were asked to do Snoopy and the Red Baron, and we turned it down. A stupid move. But, on the other hand, we did prove that we were not a bubblegum band. Probably a good move, because immediately, through using arrangers and using good musicians and writing songs that people could see were way above what they considered us to be, we showed people, because we lived in New York City, we showed people that musically we were certainly adept. And immediately I did start getting projects. People asked to do sessions. I played on all kinds of records and stuff. And then immediately we started playing with Johnny, and that certainly elevated our status as, musicians, I guess.
For sure.
We immediately were not
performers.
We were not part of the bubblegum era.
Right.
So whatever we did worked in our favor ultimately.
And you obviously played with Johnny before Edgar.
Yeah.
Right.
I met Edgar through Johnny. And all that happened in that respect was Johnny eventually got to the point where his drug problems became so severe that he two things happened. He decided that the whole McCoy's thing was taking him in more of a rock and roll direction than he wanted to go in. So he both wanted to pursue more strict blues, and he also wanted to help himself health-wise. So he checked himself into a full-time drug facility that was going to take at least a year. And Johnny and Edgar are both very intelligent. Johnny in his mind said, well, this is going to help me in two ways. It's going to allow me to release myself from the McCoys, who is a rock and roll image, gives me more of a rock and roll image. And when I come out of the drug facility, I will be able then to devote myself to acquiring more of a full blues image and full blues musicians. So that was his plan. That worked for him. But immediately when he checked himself into that facility, I called up Edgar and I said, Edgar, I know you haven't found that guitar player you're looking for. I was his producer at that time.
Oh, wow.
I was already producing White Trash and stuff. And I said, I know you haven't found that guitar player, so hello, here I am. And so I will now join White Trash. And he said, fabulous idea. So I joined White Trash as their guitarist, and I was still their producer. And from that, becoming White Trash's guitarist on the Roadwork album, fabulous album.
Yeah.
And then went ahead to be his guitarist in that Edgar Winter band, and continued to produce that record as well.
And did some co-writing with him, right?
Yeah.
One of the big ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
little Frankenstein.
I didn't co-write that one.
Oh, you didn't co-write that one?
You didn't co-write that?
I produced it.
Oh, you produced it. Okay.
Yeah, I produced it.
And now, did you write Free Ride?
Nope. That was Dan Hartman.
Oh.
Dan Hartman wrote that. Dan Hartman was a very talented guy.
Wow.
He was a guy who, from Pennsylvania, just started sending. He'd send a different tape every week to Steve Paul, and every week that tape would include like 6 to 10 new songs that he had written. And every week, new tape, new songs, filled with songs. And they were all fabulous songs.
Wow.
And so eventually, he wasn't in White Trash. Eventually, Edgar got the idea, I want to do a 4-man band of just a commercial type band, away from this blues kind of whatever you call that format White Trash was. And so that was coincidentally the time when I decided I want to go out and do a solo thing. So he put together the 4-man band that included Dan Hartman, and I went out and did the All American Boy album that included Rock and Roll Hoochie Coo.
Wow, interesting. And I'm so wrapped up in the stories. I keep forgetting to ask, like, what kind of gear you were
I know,
using
I was
at
gonna
one
ask that same
particular
question.
point. It's when did it go from the first guitar to something that I guess you were playing regularly with the McCoys? What was the McCoys rig? Do you remember?
I was playing. I probably very quickly in the McCoys switched to Marshalls.
Oh,
at
really?
Some point. Yeah. That was the amp of everybody.
And that was
Marshalls
early
very
Marshall
quickly.
too. That was
very quickly people started playing Marshalls
and guitar.
Both Les Pauls, and I had an ES 355 TD, which was the stereotype Gibson, the big red Gibson, but it was the one with the Veritone switch on it, but without the stereo.
And did it
Fabulous
did it have
guitar.
F holes?
Yes.
Okay, so that's different than Lucille, which doesn't have F holes.
Right. No,
and it has stereo.
It has stereo and the
Yes.
Veritone.
The Veritone.
Yeah, the Veritone.
And that was a great guitar. That one eventually got stolen. And then I got one like it without the Veritone and without stereo. Still a great guitar. That's the one like I played with Ringo quite a bit when I went out with him a couple of years ago.
All-Star Band thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that was a great guitar. I played that on Hang On Sloopy.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Do you still have this instrument?
No, that was stolen. Too bad. All the good ones are stolen usually.
Really?
Man.
Yeah. When you're Johnny and Edgar's, same kind of rig, Marshall and Les Paul, or Marshall
usually
Gibson.
Marshall, Les Paul. Yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Eventually, I started playing some Strats, BC Rich.
Oh.
Through the
BC Rich.
70s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's when
Bernie was everywhere.
I told you, man. Bernie
I
Rico,
swear.
one of the most underrated builders.
His guitars, the guitars he built,
Yes.
fabulous.
Yes. And just, we always talk about completely a innovation of the actual guitar, because he was using laminate necks, multiple pieces, neck through. Nobody was doing anything like that.
His guitars, he was able to get those strings so close to those frets and not buzz at all and not fret out at all. He had a magic touch himself. Bernie himself.
Yeah.
He could make electric guitars that played just, they were magic. They, it was hard to touch them.
I've heard, Ed Roman. I always talk about this. Ed Roman, big guitar dealer out in Las Vegas. He's passed away, but he was a huge Bernie Rico fan, and he bought a ton of the original guitars that just to have them refurbished and resold, because he just thought that was
believed
that was the benchmark, you know.
And Ed Roman also, though, had some made that he would call originals to Ed Roman.
Exactly.
I love Ed Roman, by the way, but you have to be very careful.
He's got a ton of luthiers over there.
He unscrupulous character too, but he knew guitars, and he was very right about Bernie's guitars. Bernie, the first one I played was Joe Perry had one. He had a Mockingbird. I picked up one day in the studio, and I played that guitar and went, "There's no way this guitar can play this good." I just went, "There's no way this guitar can play this good." Mm-hmm. The strings were so close to those frets, didn't buzz, didn't fret out, just played better than any guitar I'd ever played.
Yeah.
Just simply played better than any guitar I'd ever played. And that's when I said, I got to get one of these. So I got a Mockingbird from Bernie. It played just as good as his. It was just a fabulous guitar. And all I can say is the guitars you got from Bernie were that good. His son, who he passed the company on to, just didn't have it together.
Yeah.
And the guys in Cincinnati that he sold it to didn't have it together.
I mean, some people
so-
just have the magic touch, man. It's
Bernie.
it's not about numbers and measurements, and that sometimes
No.
it's just the
Yeah.
guy.
And that
you
neck
know?
through the body thing with no heel. I mean, nobody did that.
Yeah.
Nobody
yeah.
did that before him. As far as I know, I never saw a guitar that did that before him.
No. Not even a Firebird.
And I mean, he did the
Which is
old
neck
school
throw.
way, you know, like shaving the neck personally.
Yeah,
you know,
well, he
with-
used
with-
a spoke shave and you
Right.
know all kinds of stuff. So yeah,
that was
it's
crazy.
You know, I mean, what a loss too. Because we interviewed Wayne Charvel,
Yeah.
and Wayne, I had a conversation with him years before we started the
I
show.
don't want to interrupt you, but I played some great Charvel.
Absolutely. And Wayne told me that he said, I guess about 5 years before Bernie passed away, they got together and he went over to Wayne's shop and Wayne showed him. He said, look, this is how, do it like, you know, put your shop together like this. And he goes, the flow will get so much better. And I guess he started to get things going and then he passed away, you know. But just an amazing builder. And if you have one of those originals, man, that's...
He was a nice guy, too. Bernie was a great guy.
Yeah, I heard he was a really nice guy. That would have been a really good interview for us.
that would have been great.
That would have been awesome. He was like the first guy to ever use like jumbo frets.
Those jumbo frets worked for him, but that neck through the body thing.
Yeah, just ring for days.
You didn't have to worry about a glue joint. You didn't have to worry about anything. I mean, no heel at all. Didn't have to worry about a heel.
No. They had 24 frets.
24 frets.
Yeah. A lot of just
worked.
things that weren't even being done.
24 frets and they all worked. You know?
Yeah,
You're right.
Yeah, because I use 22 most of the time. In fact, over the years, I've decided that I don't want to play up there. It's like wimpy. I mean, what am I, a mandolin player or something? You know, it's like ZZ Top. You know, I went and saw ZZ Top a couple weeks ago. They are men on stage, and it makes me think about like AC/DC, Angus Young. I mean, what is he? He's like an old man who dresses like a little kid. I mean, there's something sick about that. You know, and Rick Nielsen too. I mean, here's another one.
yeah.
Here's another one. You know, it's like after a while you go like, hey, you know, you're a little funny.
But I guess after you start the persona, I guess you can't leave it. It's what you're known for. You know?
Well, I will give it
Mr. Checkerboard.
But wait a minute, though. Ted Nugent got rid of the loincloth.
Thank God for that. Thank God for
but
that.
those little high frets, so the 24 frets, I don't play 24 frets anymore. I don't need those little frets up there. You know? After a while, you go like, what am I doing up here? You know, I want to play down here, right here. That's where the guitar
Where all
is.
the balls are.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, what's funny is a friend of mine was in the bathroom with Joe Satriani.
Yeah.
And like his bass player, Stu Ham, was doing a bass solo. He had to go to the bathroom. So
that's what bass players are good for.
So my friend goes, he goes, hey, Joe. He goes, man, you're really kicking it out there. And he goes, oh, thanks. And he goes, so did you teach Steve Vai everything? And he goes, I taught him some things and all. And he goes, why don't you play 24 frets? Right? And he went, because you take that 22nd fret and you bend it up to 24, it's got a little bit more in it.
That's good.
I was like,
there you go.
In the bathroom.
That's good.
30 seconds of wisdom in the bathroom. That's
I
perfect.
just don't like going up there. I don't even go up high. I on 22 frets. I don't go up there very
Right.
much.
Right.
I know what you mean, man. It's definitely, you know.
Well, I mean, you go where you feel comfortable. Some guys are like up here, and that's a bit tiring for me after a while. Like, you know, it really is. But
well, it's
you know,
also
all the nuts are.
It's harsh on the ears. You know, it's
After a while, I don't know when it was. It wasn't that long ago. Just within the last bunch of years. But after a while, I went like, "What am I doing up there?"
It's called maturity. It's called maturity. Yes. You know. Well, you know, you've been doing it for a long time, and you've done a lot of studio stuff. I mean, we were reading, you did studio work with Steely Dan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
Played on most of the records.
That's insane.
See, they don't give credits usually, so.
And they bring in like 6 guys, you know, and just cut all different stuff. But you did the solo on Showbiz Kids.
I'm on Showbiz Kids.
Oh man, I mean, Steely Dan is one of my all-time favorite ever bands, and you either love them or hate them. They're really a love-hate thing. You either love them or hate them.
I'll tell you a Steely Dan story. They're one of the few bands that they are known as perfectionists.
Oh,
You
yeah,
know, people know them, and they got a reputation as being perfectionists. But they are one of the few bands that I'd be playing on a record with them, and you'd be playing a solo for them, and you'd screw up, do something, just a horrible mistake, and they're one of the few bands that Gary, their producer, would go, okay, let's try that again. And before you could go back and before he'd let them try it again, Donald would go, no, wait a second. I want to hear that. In other words, a horrible mistake. Do you think it's a horrible mistake? Donald's the first guy that says, no, wait, hey, I want to hear that.
There could be something there.
Yeah.
Wow.
In other words,
Yeah.
they're known as perfectionists, but what you might consider a horrible mistake, Donald might go, I kind of like that.
We put another couple of notes around this. It's going to be something, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, their musical ear is just it's unparalleled. It really is.
Yeah.
I love everything about them. I do.
Yep. Donald's cool.
Well, that is that's
So-
wild stuff, man.
All right. Let's get more. Let's get a little more current.
Okay.
The band that you have now. How long have you been out doing this solo thing, or is there something in the middle that I'm missing?
Charlie and I have been playing together. I used to say we've been playing together 18 years, and Charlie reminded me a few years ago I've been saying that for 18 years. So
Charlie's your bass player.
yeah, Charlie and I have been playing together a long time. At some point, he left me and was, or whatever, for whatever circumstance, we weren't playing together for a while. And I had some other people playing with me. I don't even know why. I had been living in New York City and I moved out. I'm not sure if that's the reason why. I'm not even sure why. But for a few years we weren't playing together. I had a couple other people playing with me. But Charlie has returned, and we're back together again. So Charlie's really my main bass player, other than like the guys in the White Trash and stuff like that with other bands. With my trio, Charlie's the main bass player I've had over all these years. Other people have been here in and out, but Charlie's the main guy I've played with for many years. Charlie Torres, love him. He'll play any song. He knows most songs. He's got music in him. He's not like a fancy bass player or anything like that. He just knows how to play the bass. He can play, next to Randy Joe Hobbs, the original guy in the McCoys, who played with White Trash and Johnny Winter. Charlie is another one of those kind of guys. He just got bass in him. He knows how to play the bass. There's not anybody else I'd necessarily rather play with than Charlie Torres.
That's really nice.
That's very cool, man.
That has to be comfortable.
Yeah,
for you on stage.
It is, totally.
Yeah, you don't have to think about anything, man.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Just
If
go.
I screw something up, Charlie's right there. He's covering for me. Or he'll go wherever I go. Because as I get older, like I said, the memory is the one thing that you lose. Occasionally I'll be right in the middle of a song and just go like, uh-oh. Oh, wow.
I call them brain farts.
Charlie's right there. He'll go wherever I go. He's covering right.
Awesome.
So that's cool. Charlie's been with me a long time. Now, Tommy, the drummer I had for a long time, his name was Tom Curiel. A few years ago, he just came to me one day. I had some musical issues with Tommy, but Tommy was also a good friend, and he was also a good road manager. And so the big friend thing is good, and a good road manager is good. So
worth their weight in gold.
Yeah. So even though I had some musical issues with Tommy, I let those slide in deference to those other things. And also, I'm not, I'm a kind of easygoing guy. I'm not one on kind of firing people. And so I let all those other things slide. So Tommy stayed with me for a real long time. And then all of a sudden one day, he came to me, and it was almost like he was trying to start to pick a fight or something. And there was some money issue. And he well, what are you going to do about that, Rick? And I said, Tommy, we've already resolved that issue. Well, if that's the way it is, I'm out of here. I quit. And I went like,
wow.
That's what I did. That's what I went. I said, wow. Well,
yeah, I thought we were good.
Yeah. But I did say, well, okay. Because I did have some musical issues with Tom.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm not one to fire a guy, but I did have this long ongoing musical issue thing with him, and this guy Ken, who's playing with me now. And even though I hadn't talked about it, I knew for a couple years he had been saying that he would love to be my drummer. I had seen him play with the guy Deodato.
Wow.
And I knew that with Deodato, I had seen him. One of the coolest things about Deodato was he had played grooves, and I had watched him actually on stage write songs. He had established this groove, and he'd go around and say, "Just stay right there, guys," and he'd like walk around on stage and listen to guys play, and he wrote a lot of Kool in the Gang stuff, and those are like groove-oriented songs.
Yeah.
And I'd watch him write these things, and I went like, well, Ken's, he's got a good groove. Well, that was one of my main issues with Tom. Tommy didn't have a groove at all. And so I went like, wow. So in the back of my head, I'm going like, I'll bet I could call up Ken an hour from now and have a drummer. So I went, okay, Tommy, you're quitting. Well, what I found out later was Johnny Winter had pretty much called up Tommy. Johnny Winter had a fairly unscrupulous manager. And his manager, I guess, had told Tommy, we're going to England like next week, and if you want to go, you can be our drummer for whatever reason.
So Tommy needed an out too.
Yeah.
The universe was giving you an out for him, and Tommy needed an out too.
And Johnny Winter's manager liked. He wanted to hit on me for some reason. He wanted to steal something from me. This is kind of like, this guy is not the nicest guy in the world, Johnny Winter's manager. So he basically used that as a way to steal steal Tommy from me. I didn't know that. I found that out pretty quickly. So in the end, I called Ken, and Ken came to do a gig with me without a rehearsal a couple weeks later, without knowing my songs, without a rehearsal. Basically, I sent him a little set list, but that was it. And he did it without a rehearsal. Bang, on stage, did fine. And Tommy went out, joined Johnny, and less than 2 years, Johnny died.
Oh,
so,
wow.
I mean, I'm not saying I wish bad things on him or anything, but Ken is now my drummer. And that's the answer to our other question. Ken Moutino is the name of my drummer. He's been with me for 3 years now since Tommy left, and I'm very happy.
And we're getting the rap from him hard. But I got to ask you about current gear. Guitar.
I'm playing a Warrior guitar tonight. I play all Warrior guitars. We've designed a brand new one. The first one I've designed. I've designed kind of some innovations with them over the past 10 or so years, but we're unveiling a brand new one called the Rad at the Dallas International Guitar Show within a week and a half, coming right up. I want everybody to check that out. It's really cool.
All right.
And amps.
Yeah.
I use VVT amps. I love the VVT amps, and we designed. Jim Hill designed the amp that I use lately, and it was supposedly started out to be a kind of a Dumble-esque amp, which some people have. Fuchs does a Dumble-esque, Two Rocks does a Dumble-esque, other people do. Well, recently I had the opportunity to visit Alexander Dumble at his house. And I went through the whole experience of Dumble. He had a whole room with about 20 or 30 amps in a tier lined up. And he put me through his whole Dumble experience. And what he does is he has you play through a whole bunch of these little amps. And they are all various rare Tweed-esque amps, we'll call them. They're all Tweed kind of amps. Many you've never heard of. Some you have. But in the end, what you find is they're all Tweed-esque amps. They all sound like Tweed amps, whether you've heard of them or not. He likes them all, you find. And in the end of this experience, he finally goes, well, this is why you're here today, I guess. And he pulls out one of his overdrive specials, a little combo overdrive special. and he plugs you into it, and he twiddles with the knobs on it and sets it up, and he goes, okay, here you go, let it rip. And you start playing, and what I found was he has it set up to sound like a tweed amp. And I went like, it blew my mind, and I realized nobody really, very few people in the world really ever have the opportunity of playing through a Dumble amp.
True.
So what people have done is each person in his own mind has built up an idea of what he thinks this ethereal, dreamlike Dumble amp sounds like. So in his own mind, everybody thinks, oh, it sounds like that. And he has this idea of how cool this, Dumble amp should sound. And because of that, they always want it. They want that Dumble amp, that famous Dumble amp sound. Fuchs may sound like it, but it must be better than a Fuchs. Two Rock may sound like it, but it must be better than the Two Rock. And they want it. They want that Dumble amp. When I got leaving Alexander Dumble's house, the first call I made was to Jim Hill. I said, Jim, you're not going to believe it. Ours sounds better than his.
Wow.
Our Dumble sounds better than a real Dumble.
Everybody wants a Dumble, and Alexander wants a tweed.
And he wants a tweed.
He wants a tweed. That's priceless.
And 80 grand.
That is priceless.
Oh, 80 grand. Listen to this. In the middle of the conversation that day, he tells me, just in the middle of a conversation, for me to build one of these things nowadays, it'd cost me like 150 grand. And so I said, so that brings me to the point of my conversation being here today. If I were actually to ask you to build me one of these, by the way, how much would it cost me? He goes, well, I said it. I said, you said what?
150 grand?
He goes, 150 grand.
$150,000.
I said, $150,000? That's what I said. I said, God. Well, that leaves me out. He goes, well, he said, okay. He goes, well, if you have like an old Marshall 800, JCM 800, there is a conversion that I can do to a JCM 800 that I can do for between 10 or 15,000. I said, well, which is it?
Wow.
Right away. Well, which is it? 10 or 15,000? But I didn't even wait for a response on that because I went like, oh,
wow.
I'm not even going to.
Man, we could go forever on this. We could go forever.
We're going to get in trouble. So.
Good.
Yeah, Dumble wants a tweed.
Someday you'll hear one of mine too. But in the meantime, we've got to wrap because we're getting the vaudeville pull. So, Rick, thank you so much for taking the time, man. It has been a blast. It has been a blast.
The Dumble story's worth the price of admission.
It's worth twice the price of admission, my friends.
Thank you
twice
enough.
the price. Rick, thank you so very much.
Yes, sir.
Do what you got to do. I know you're busy as hell today, and we're so looking forward to the show, man. I can't wait to see you.
Me too. I can't wait to see what I'll forget tonight.
Awesome. Well, we'll be right there with you. Rick, thank you so very much, man.
You guys.
Have a great rest of the evening.
Okay, man.
Thanks.
You too.
Bye. Well, and there you have the story.
Yeah.
And that story goes. That's a way back machine there, man. That's a way back machine. The McCoys.
Yeah.
Wow.
We were getting yelled at the end there, and it's look. It was. We just had to let him go.
Oh no, absolutely.
I mean, it was just too much. I couldn't. It was like I see the hand coming through the door.
It was almost the vaudeville claw, kind of thing. But I mean, it's just so nice when a guest feels so at home. We're having a conversation, and it's much nicer. It's even nicer when we get to do it in person.
On the website, I will have a picture of the Warrior guitar that he showed us afterwards. I put it on Instagram already. To kind of give people a hint of who we were having up, and but I will definitely post that picture. That thing was amazing.
The
looking.
Neck on that thing. I mean, that was probably
a log.
The consummate definition of baseball bat that I've ever held in my hand.
But the action was next to it. Was just laying on there.
Oh yeah.
That thing was amazing. But what an amazing guy.
Yeah.
I mean, it seemed like he could have talked to us for hours.
Yeah. Yeah.
And just could have kept going. I mean, because the story's just one right after another, and
really interesting. And you know,
the career is forever.
Yeah, insight into the early days of
the McCoys
and record labels and some
how
of the people
it was done,
and some of the people involved who went on to being people that
yeah.
like big record execs, and
exactly.
So yeah, that was
playing for a radio station, being the radio station band, and being then the opener. Remember, they would no, I'm sorry, yes, they opened for the band, then they backed the band, so it was like Chuck Berry or somebody.
Right,
like
yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like stage band, house band kind of thing. You open and then you back the talent.
Yeah, man.
So,
and talk about it. I say it all the time. You guys hear me say this. This is the coolest gig that I've ever had. I mean, I would never meet Rick Derringer. It just never would have happened. You know?
Now you can't say that.
I know.
Now you cannot say that, my friend.
I don't even know what to say to these guys. It's like, hey, how you doing?
Hey. You know who you are?
Yeah, I just like, I don't know. Yeah, should I hug you?
And I don't think he would have minded at all.
No. He seemed like, man, just a salt of the earth guy.
Totally. And literally just loves to play.
Oh, yeah.
Ours was not the first nor last interview with him.
No.
And he went and did more interviews.
Yeah.
And then hit the stage running, man. It was like, wow.
Just an awesome guy.
Yeah, totally. So thank you, Rick.
Yeah,
and,
man.
We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, because that was fun.
Absolutely. So until next time, my friend.
Damn right.
Oh, yeah. I am Mick Marcelino.
And I am Jeff Bobo.
Yeah, you are.
That's right.
And we're always saying.
Onward.
Be sure and follow the show on Twitter @AmsandAxis. Also, make sure you like the show on Facebook. For news, comments, and everything else, visit the webpage, AmsandAxisCast.com. Thanks for listening.